UV and shell manipulation. Alright, so right now, all our UVs are made for us because this is a default box. And every object here in Maya, these primitives, for example, if I just drag one of these out and go to Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, go to Materials, click and drag middle mouse button, you'll see that each one of these has a different way of looking at the mapping, because the UVs on every one of these objects are different. Some are good, some are bad. In a world of CG and game design and all that good stuff, these other primitives are really horrible. The only one that really makes sense is the box. Okay, and we can make the box into a great many things. That would be probably covered in a modeling class and called box modeling. We're going to look at some of those concepts here also, though, not in this video, but in future videos. So right now I have this cube and it's got UVs already on it, and you can go to UV texture editor and you can see that these are the UVs, and I messed with it in the last video by moving a face over here and flipping it around. But let's say an object didn't have its UVs. Well, let's look at turning a few things on and off. So establish a workflow. Go to shading. I like to keep on wireframe unshaded, backface culling, and wireframe unshaded just allows you to see the edges, and backface culling allows you to see things that are a problem. Let's say if I saw this, for example, I know that something went wrong and my normals are flipped. So anytime I see that, I know that I have to flip my normals. Okay, let's go to this one, and you can see that it's really hard to see in the UV texture editor. So we have all the ones I like to turn on and off over here. Viewport 2.0 is handy, especially if you're using the checker pattern here in Maya. But over here we have a couple things to turn on. One, we can use texture border edges, and you can click on this and you can see where the seams are. Very important that you know where seams are and how to see them. The name of the game is to eliminate as many seams as possible. Another thing is I keep this clicked on to see the direction of W over here. The fine folks at Maya decided blue should be the default color, and it cannot change. So the only way to see the border edge is kind of look closely at it. We can change the thickness of it though by right clicking over here and changing the thickness here and hitting apply. Now you can get it to be maybe about that thick. Now it clearly indicates that those are there, and I can toggle those on and off. The bad news is once I toggle it once, I lose the thickness. So maybe you should just learn to see them at the default, because it has a nifty button right here in the heat of battle. Okay, so that's it with the setting up of the workflow. Now let's look at the part where we have to manipulate these. Alright, so let's get into the UV texture editor. And right now these UVs are made for me. You can see if I grab some UVs and hit W on the keyboard and move this face around, somewhere on this object is there we go. You can see that that texture is now moving. And if I line this up well enough, the checker pattern lines up and it looks like it's going from surface to surface. If I had this, like, let's say upside down, this probably wouldn't be a good thing because I have now a surface direction change. That doesn't make sense. If I was putting a label on this box, I would have to now draw that label sideways on this one face. Okay, so surface direction can be seen here because of the 5s and 7s. Here, however, it doesn't, I don't know. Like really, I can just grab an edge, it, so I could rotate this, but the only thing is, if it's rotated like this, I'm clearly going to see that, but I can't see anything else. So there's not enough information here to be useful, where this one has a lot of information that's useful. Okay, so let's go like this and go to Create UVs, Automatic Mapping. This will blow the box apart, and it usually generally ends up where some of my 5s and 7s are going in the right direction, and then other things that are wrong is I have so many of these edges. Like these thicker edges dictate the border edges. And we, as a video game is concerned, a game, if you want to make it in your head, we have to eliminate those number of edges. Before, it was shaped as a T, which makes sense in real life. If I had a cardboard box and I wanted to open the cardboard box up fully, I would have to use something to cut the box, and I could form it into a T pattern or a cross pattern, and that would indicate that it's been unfolded perfectly flat. Okay. So here we could stitch things back together, but I would like to say that let's look at direction first. Let's grab these faces. I would like to have all the 5s and 7s in the right direction. Okay, well, let's go UV to shell, W on the keyboard. Another way to highlight a shell is to go into this option. Now I can move these around without going to shell. The bad thing about this is if I went to go to face, it wouldn't work. I have to go all the way over here to move, click here, and now I can use the converting from one surface to the next. So I don't know if I like this one because I like using the control right click to shell. So I would say control right click to shell is very important. So this one right here, I would love to have it flipped up like that. Okay, so let's grab edge, edge, and edge. And you can see those edges are occurring over here. Good. If I grab an edge, it's really hard to see until I turn this off. And then I can see its adjacent edge. So in this case, if I have this edge highlighted, you can see that the edge over here highlights. These two edges can be moved and sewed together, just like that. Same as if I'm on this edge, I see this edge highlight. These also can be moved and sewed. And then I can move and sew these also. So there we go. I have all those in the right direction. And I can go like this. And like this. Whoops. Now, if you see what happened there, I highlighted an edge here, but its edge also is on the same shell, which means that it will try to connect to it, but it will turn out to be something like this, which is bad. And why it's bad is because now if you look at the texture, it's really broken. So this breaks the uniformity of the texture. So uniformity means that the texture makes sense. It's the same size. All the squares are the same size throughout the whole object. That means that all of the texture that applied to it is in the same direction that you want it to be, and it's not pulled or stretched in any fashion. So, okay, let's go down here and move and sew that. Now I have a cross pattern. Okay, cross pattern's fine too. The name of the game is to get as many seams as possible out of the equation. So this one works. And then I have to get it back to the 0 and 1. Now you can see this quite doesn't fit, however, because it needs to be laid out. Okay, laying out means that it fits within the 0 to 1 UV. 0 to 1, this area right here. Doesn't go on the outside. Go into polygons and we can go to layout, square box. This is a nifty little program within Maya, and sometimes it works good, sometimes it doesn't. For me, I use it quite often, but I reset the settings. And we're going to be in here a lot, but for right now, I'm just going to hit apply. You can see by hitting apply, it screwed up my direction. I don't like this direction. If I undo it and go back to the options, it's going to ask me, well, what about rotation? Maybe none, and hit apply. Okay, so what happened here, it laid it out correctly, and now all my 5s and 7s are in the right direction. Good. So that's laying out in a nutshell. Now, it gets much more complex than that, because let's say I had an object that wasn't so box-like. For example, I'm just going to take a second and extrude this just a couple of times. I'll extrude it and extrude it. Well, I still have this going on, but over here, I don't have this area right here textured correctly. And if I go into create automatic mapping, it looks a lot better. And this is where students go, well, I'm done. But you're not done, because remember, the name of the game is to eliminate the edges as much as you can. So let's play the video game again. Again, I want all these to be on the same direction. So I can highlight all these faces, go control right click to UV. Hit W on the keyboard, and these are the ones I need in a certain direction. I'll see if they're all in the same direction. If not, this one, control right click to shell, and I can rotate that around until it gets in the right direction. So these ones can now be stitched together. Good. So what about these? Again, play the game. These need to be in the same direction maybe. Control right click to UV, W on the keyboard, move them over here. To shell them, and you can see I don't have the ability to see which face that is, so if I highlight a single face, it's this face. UV to shell, flip that around. This one, right click UV to shell, to UV, to shell, flip that around. So you can see how important it is to understand the converting from one selection to the next. Again, here's a face, so I want to control right click to UV. There we go. So now all those are in the right direction. These will never be in the right direction, these little tiny ones. So that's what you have to kind of think about is, you know, what's important, what's not important. So there's those four, leaving me with these over here to worry about. Highlighting this edge equals this edge. Maybe I want to have this edge highlighted. You can see that that's that edge right there, and I can move and sew that. Here, if I highlight this edge, the one at the very top highlights. That would be nice. This fits in the center of that, I think. So I can't see that, and if I wanted to see it, I can turn off my border edges. See, now it's much easier to see that it belongs over here. Now, I don't think I could do anything else to this to make it better. If I move this one into place, it'll be on top of this one, and it'll end up looking like this. The dark blue indicates that I have overlapping UVs. Overlapping UVs are just as bad as ununiformed UVs. We don't want that to occur. So at some point, you're going to not be able to attach this to anything because it will yield overlapping UVs. So in this case, I have these two objects or these two shells, and I can just go like this and get one closer to the other, grab all of them, and go into polygons, go to layout, square box, and if that doesn't pop up, it's because I threw it all the way down here. So I know my settings are correct. I'm just going to hit layout. How do you get it back? Well, for me, I would have to change the resolution here in Maya to something higher, 1920 by 1080. Basically, that means going into control panel and changing that. So be very careful, I will say, when you're in Maya and you have all these windows open. Don't get frustrated and throw this down here, because what will happen is if you are at a lower screen resolution, you will not be able to retrieve your window back. It's a pain. But now I have this, and just because I extruded this once, you can see how complex it really got. But if you look at the texture on it, it's perfect. All the squares are the same size, and that's what's very important here. So that's the automatic mapping, stitching together method. Practice that. Make something a little bit complex and practice it. And don't get too overboard until you get it down pat, however. So, don't make a car yet. You're not there. Make a box that has an extrude up and then lay out the UVs to look something like this as a good practice. All right, let's move on to the next video.